Ambassador Catherine Reeves stood at the viewport of her quarters aboard the USS Concord, watching as the blue glow of Earth faded into the distance. At 57, with silver streaks in her dark hair and lines of experience etched around her eyes, Catherine had spent more than 30 years in diplomatic service. This mission, however, might be the most important of her career. "Ambassador, the captain requests your presence on the bridge for departure ceremonies," said a voice behind her. Catherine turned to see Major Darius Clark, head of her security detail. With his broad shoulders and watchful eyes, Clark had the serious demeanor of someone who had seen too much combat. "Thank you, Major. I'll be right there." Catherine straightened her formal blue diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. "Any updates on the Gentok delegation?" "They departed their territory 12 hours ago. We should reach Harmony Point within 6 hours of each other," Clark replied. Catherine nodded. After decades of Cold War with the insectoid Gentok, this peace summit represented the first real chance for lasting stability. The cost of conflict had grown too high for both civilizations, with border skirmishes claiming thousands of lives, including her husband John 8 years ago. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Mercer greeted Catherine with a salute. "Ambassador, we're ready to make the jump to faster-than-light travel whenever you give the word." "Thank you, Captain. Let's not keep peace waiting any longer." Catherine pressed the ceremonial button, and the stars outside blurred as the Concord accelerated beyond light speed toward Harmony Point, the neutral space station built specifically for these talks. In the ship's conference room an hour later, Catherine met with her team. Commander Alan Pierce, her military advisor, was reviewing tactical information on his tablet. The former fighter pilot had an analytical mind that Catherine had come to rely on. "Commander, what's your assessment of the Gentok military presence near the meeting point?" Catherine asked. Pierce looked up, his face serious. "Standard escort formation for their diplomatic vessel. No unusual deployments, though they could have cloaked ships we can't detect." Dr. Olivia Winters, the team's xenolinguistics expert, spoke next. "I've been studying recent Gentok communications. Their language patterns suggest genuine interest in these talks. The subtle clicking sounds in Supreme Envoy Kralvos's recent speech indicate sincerity, at least according to our current understanding." Olivia was younger than the others, in her mid-30s, but her brilliant mind and ability to decode alien communication patterns had earned her this position. Her dark curly hair was pulled back in a practical style, and she rarely looked up from her data. Catherine turned to the fourth member of her core team. "Major Clark, security assessment?" "Harmony Point checks out. Neutral territory, jointly secured, but I don't like that we don't control the environment." Clark's fingers tapped on the table, a habit when he was concerned. "I've requested additional scanning equipment to sweep for any threats." Catherine nodded. "Approved. Now, let's review the proposed treaty points." As they worked through the details, Catherine's personal tablet chimed with an incoming message. She glanced down and froze. The message had no sender information, just text. "Daggers wait in shadows. Trust no one from the void." Catherine quietly showed the message to Clark, who immediately took her tablet. "I'll have this analyzed. Could be nothing. Could be an attempt to scare you. Or a warning," Catherine said softly. Later that evening, Catherine recorded her personal log in her quarters. "Day 1 en route to peace talks. The team is prepared, but I can't shake a feeling of unease. Perhaps it's just the weight of responsibility. Or perhaps—" She paused, thinking of the strange message, then continued. "I lost John to this conflict. I won't let personal feelings interfere. But I also won't let his sacrifice be meaningless. If there's a chance for peace, I'll find it." Catherine looked at the photo on her desk. John in his uniform, smiling, taken just days before his ship was destroyed in a Gentok ambush. Or what they had been told was an ambush. Now, with years of diplomatic experience with the Gentok, she wondered if both sides had been manipulated that day. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Olivia holding a datapad. "Ambassador, I found something interesting in the historical communication records," Olivia said, her eyes bright with discovery. There's a pattern of mistranslation at key moments of tension between humans and Gentok. Look here. Catherine examined the data. You're saying someone deliberately mistranslated these messages to make them more threatening? It's possible. The errors are too consistent to be random. This could change everything, Catherine said. If we've been manipulated into hostility? Exactly. But by whom? Olivia asked. Catherine was about to respond when the ship's alarm sounded. Captain Mercer's voice came over the intercom. Ambassador to the bridge immediately. When Catherine arrived, the bridge was tense with activity. What's happening? She asked. We've detected an unmarked vessel nearby. It appeared briefly on our sensors, then vanished, Captain Mercer explained. Cloaking technology? Catherine asked. Commander Pierce joined them, looking concerned. Neither human nor Gentok registered ships have that capability, at least not officially. Increase security protocols, Catherine ordered, and send a message to Earth and the Gentok. We may have an unknown party interested in our meeting. As the Concord continued toward Harmony Point, Catherine couldn't sleep. She reviewed the peace proposal again, making notes. The disputed star systems could be jointly developed. Trade routes could be established. Cultural exchanges could begin, healing old wounds. On the final day of their journey, Harmony Point appeared in the view screen, an enormous wheel-shaped station spinning gently in the blackness of space. Its neutral zones glowed with soft blue light, while habitation rings rotated to create artificial gravity. We're being hailed, the communications officer announced. On screen, Captain Mercer ordered. The face that appeared was not human. Kralvos, supreme envoy of the Gentok hegemony, had the characteristic exoskeletal features of his species. Compound eyes, mandibles instead of a jaw, and an iridescent green-blue carapace. Yet his posture and gestures had been adapted to seem less threatening to humans. Ambassador Reeves, he said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language to English. The hegemony welcomes you to these historic talks. Catherine stepped forward. Supreme Envoy, humanity comes with hope for a lasting peace. Our vessel will dock in approximately 20 minutes, Kralvos said. We look forward to meeting face to face. As the transmission ended, Major Clark approached Catherine. Ambassador, our security team has completed their initial scans of the station. Everything seems in order, but what, Major? That anonymous message you received? We traced its origin. It came from Harmony Point itself, sent 3 days ago. Catherine felt a chill. Before either delegation arrived. Exactly, Clark said grimly. Someone's waiting for us, and they didn't. Want their warning going through official channels. As the Concord docked with Harmony Point, Catherine straightened her uniform one last time. Peace was within reach, but so was danger. She would need to be ready for both. Catherine stepped through the airlock onto Harmony Point, Major Clark at her side. The station's artificial gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth standard. The walls curved gently, reminding everyone they were on a spinning wheel in space. Welcome to Harmony Point, Ambassador Reeves, said a tall woman in the gray uniform of station security. I'm Director Susan Blake. We've prepared the diplomatic quarters for your team. Catherine shook the woman's hand. Thank you, Director. When will the Gentok delegation arrive? Their ship is docking now at the opposite side of the station. Protocol dictates both delegations settle in before the formal meeting. Director Blake glanced at her tablet. That's scheduled for 1400. Station time. Major Clark scanned the area, his eyes noting every detail. We'll need to inspect the conference room before the meeting. Of course, Blake nodded. I'll have my security chief show you everything. As they walked through the station's wide corridors, Catherine noticed the careful design. Everything was built to accommodate both human and Gentok biology. Doorways were taller than necessary for humans. Lighting was adjusted to suit both species' vision, and temperature controls maintained a compromise between human comfort and Gentok preference. In the delegation's quarters, Commander Pierce was already studying the station's schematics. The layout puts us at equal distances from both the conference center and emergency evacuation points, he noted. Smart design, Catherine said. Where's Dr. Winters? Setting up her translation equipment, Pierce replied. She's excited about testing some new theories on Gentalk communication. An hour later, Dr. Winters burst into Catherine's room, her face flushed with excitement. Ambassador, you need to see this. She placed a tablet on Catherine's desk. I've been analyzing the station's communication logs. There are regular transmissions being sent to an unknown location. They're disguised as system updates, but the pattern is all wrong. Catherine frowned. Could it be station maintenance? No. Olivia shook her head. These began exactly 14 days ago, when the station was officially declared ready for the peace talks. Catherine remembered the warning message. Major Clark should see this, and we need to be careful who we tell. If someone on this station is sending secret messages, they could be watching us right now, Olivia finished. Major Clark took the news with grim confirmation. I don't like this. The timing of your anonymous warning, these transmissions, something's not right. Catherine checked the time. We meet the Gentalk in 30 minutes. Keep investigating, but quietly. And major, extra security checks. Before the meeting, already on it, Ambassador. The conference room was a perfect circle with two identical entrances on opposite sides. A round table dominated the center, with human and Gentalk seats arranged to accommodate their different body structures. Catherine positioned herself so she could see the door her team had entered through. The opposite door slid open, and the Gentalk delegation entered. Their movements were precise and graceful despite their exoskeletal bodies. Supreme Envoy Kral Voss led them, his carapace more elaborately decorated than the others, signifying his high rank. Catherine stood, as did her team. Supreme Envoy, welcome. I am Ambassador Catherine Reeves of Earth. Kral Voss made a series of clicking sounds that his translator converted to English. Ambassador Reeves, I greet you with hope for understanding between our peoples. He moved his upper limbs in a gesture humans would recognize as similar to a bow. After introductions, they sat down to begin the formal talks. Catherine was struck by how different yet familiar diplomatic rituals could be across species. Both sides presented their opening positions, outlined areas of dispute, and proposed paths toward resolution. During a break, Catherine found herself alone with Kral Voss, near the refreshment area. The Gentalk was sampling water while Catherine drank coffee. Your species values this liquid for its stimulant properties? Kral Voss asked, his compound eyes studying her cup. Catherine smiled. Yes, though some of us just enjoy the taste. Interesting. We have similar preferences for certain mineral-rich waters. He paused, his mandibles moving slightly. Ambassador, may I speak frankly? Catherine nodded. Not all of my people support these talks. There are factions that believe humans cannot be trusted. We have similar divisions, Catherine admitted. War has left deep scars on both sides. Kral Voss's posture shifted in what Catherine recognized as a sign of agreement. The incident that claimed your mate's life, it has been reviewed by our military council. There are inconsistencies in the records. Catherine felt her heart beat faster. What kind of inconsistencies? The ship that attacked was using Gentalk signatures, but the attack pattern was wrong, not our tactics. Kral Voss leaned closer. I lost a clutch sibling in a similar incident, blamed on humans, but the weapon signatures did not match your technology. Before Catherine could respond, Commander Pierce approached. Ambassador, Dr. Winters has some findings to share. In a small side room, Olivia was practically vibrating with excitement. I've been analyzing the language patterns in past conflicts between us and the Gentalk. The translation errors I mentioned earlier, they're not random. Look at this, she showed them a series of diplomatic exchanges from the early days of human Gentalk contact. In these key messages, certain phrases were consistently mistranslated to sound more threatening or dismissive than they actually were. Catherine studied the evidence. So someone deliberately sabotaged communication between our species? For what purpose? War profiteering? Territorial advantage, Commander Pierce suggested. Or maybe someone doesn't want humans and Gentok finding common ground. Major Clark entered, his face serious. Ambassador, we've completed our security sweep of the station. We found 3 unauthorized surveillance devices in our quarters. Gentok technology? Catherine asked. No, Clark shook his head. That's the strange part. The technology doesn't match anything in our databases. Not human, not Gentok. And there's more. I spoke with a station security officer who reported unusual maintenance crews last week. When he tried to verify their credentials, they disappeared. Catherine rubbed her temples. We need to tell Kral Voss. If both our delegations are being monitored by a third party. That evening, Catherine recorded a private message on a secure data stick. Day 1 of negotiations complete. The Gentok seem genuinely interested in peace, but evidence suggests a third party has been manipulating both sides for years. I believe this unknown faction may be responsible for incidents including the attack that killed John. We need to proceed carefully. If we can identify who's behind this, we might not only achieve peace but find justice for those lost. She hid the data stick in a secret compartment in her personal effects, a precaution that now seemed necessary. As she prepared for bed, Catherine noticed something wasn't right in her room. Small items had been moved, almost imperceptibly, but her years of careful observation made the difference clear. Someone had searched her quarters. She didn't call security. Instead, she sent a message to Major Clark using their emergency code. Then she double-checked that her door was locked and placed a drinking glass against it, an old trick that would make noise if anyone tried to enter. Catherine lay in bed, wide awake, thinking about Kral Voss's revelation about John's death and the mysterious third party watching them all. Tomorrow they would discuss the disputed star systems. It should have been a straightforward negotiation. But nothing about this mission was straightforward anymore. Peace was still the goal, but now Catherine had a second mission: find out who had been keeping their species at war, and why. Outside her window, the stars turned slowly as Harmony Point rotated in the darkness of space. Somewhere out there were answers, and Catherine was determined to find them, before whoever was watching decided to move beyond surveillance. Catherine woke early on the 3rd day of peace talks. She had slept poorly, her mind working through the puzzle of who might be watching them. The glass she had placed against her door remained undisturbed. Major Clark met her for breakfast in War, the secure dining area reserved for the human delegation. He kept his voice low as he reported, "We swept for bugs again this morning. Found 2 new ones, different design from yesterday." Catherine sipped her coffee. Someone is very interested in what we're doing. I showed the devices to a trusted contact in station security, Clark continued. He confirmed they're not standard for any known species. The technology is advanced. Commander, Pierce joined them, sliding his tray onto the table. Today we discuss the disputed star systems, he said. This is where talks usually break down. Not this time, Catherine said firmly. I've prepared a proposal for joint development. Both species gain access to resources, neither loses face. Dr. Winters arrived last, her eyes bright despite the early hour. Ambassador, I spent half the night analyzing communication patterns. I've improved our translation system to catch subtle meanings in Gentok speech. Their emotional indicators are mostly in their click patterns, not their words. Good work. We need every advantage today. Catherine checked the time. The meeting starts in 30 minutes. I want to speak with Kral Voss privately before then. Catherine found the Gentok envoy in the observation dome, his tall form silhouetted against the stars. He turned at her approach, mandibles moving in what she now recognized as a greeting gesture. Ambassador Reeves, you are early. As are you, Supreme Envoy. Catherine stood beside him, looking out at the vastness of space. I wanted to continue our conversation from yesterday. About the inconsistencies in our conflicts, Kral Voss made a soft clicking sound. Yes, I have been reviewing more records. The attack that killed your mate. Our military archives show no authorized operation in that sector on that day. Catherine felt her heart beat faster. Are you saying it wasn't Gentok forces? I am, saying someone wished it to appear as Gentok. Just as someone has made attacks on our colonies appear human. He turned his compound eyes toward her. Who benefits from our continued conflict, Ambassador? I've been asking myself the same question. Catherine took a data pad from her pocket. This is my proposal for the disputed systems. Joint development, shared resources, cooperative security. Will your government accept such terms? Kralvos studied the proposal. These are generous terms, more generous than I expected. Peace is worth the price, Catherine said simply. The Gentok made a gesture she hadn't seen before. In my culture, this means agreement between equals. He mimicked a human handshake. In yours, I believe this is the custom? Catherine shook, his upper limb careful of the different joint structure. Then we have understanding. We do. Kralvos lowered his voice. But Ambassador, be careful. Not all on my side want peace, and I suspect the same is true for humans. All the more reason to formalize our agreement quickly. The main session began at exactly 1,000 hours. Catherine presented the joint development proposal to both delegations. The human team had already been briefed, but some of the Gentok representatives made agitated clicking sounds when they heard the terms. One Gentok official, Sub-Envoy Mrektor, rose from his seat. These terms surrender too much. The hegemony claims these systems by right of first survey. Kralvos responded with sharp clicks that the translator rendered as, the Supreme Council has approved exploration of compromise solutions. These terms merit consideration. As the debate continued, Catherine noticed Dr. Winters frowning at her translation device. The xenolinguist made subtle adjustments, her expression growing increasingly concerned. During a brief recess, Winters pulled Catherine aside. Ambassador, something's wrong with the translation system. It's like someone is trying to override our corrections. The more aggressive statements are being amplified, the conciliatory ones downplayed. Can you fix it? I'm trying. But whoever's doing this is good. Really good. Catherine's concerns grew. She spotted Kralvos across the room and made her way toward him. Before she could reach him, Major Clark appeared at her side. Ambassador, security alert. Station monitors detected an unauthorized ship docking briefly at an emergency airlock 20 minutes ago. By the time security arrived, it was gone. Someone came aboard? Catherine whispered. Or something, Clark replied grimly. I've doubled our security detail. When the session resumed, tension filled the room. Catherine could sense the Gentok were divided, with Mrektor and his supporters becoming increasingly agitated. She decided to address the issue directly. Honored representatives, she began. I understand there are concerns about these terms. Let me be clear. Humanity wants lasting peace, not temporary advantage. We propose joint development because working together benefits both our species more than continued conflict. She walked slowly around the table as she spoke. For too long, we've seen each other as enemies. But what if that perception was manipulated? What if a third party has been keeping us at war? Mrektor rose again. Human paranoia. You invent invisible enemies to distract from your expansionist aims. The translation came through harsher than the actual speech patterns indicated, Catherine noticed. Dr. Winters was right. Kralvos intervened. The ambassador's concerns merit investigation. Our own security has detected anomalies. A sharp sound cut him off. At first, Catherine thought someone had dropped something. Then she saw the small object rolling across the floor toward the center of the room. Explosive device, Major Clark shouted. He lunged toward Catherine, just as the world erupted into blinding light and deafening noise. Catherine felt herself thrown backwards. Pain exploded across her chest. Through ringing ears, she heard screaming, both human and the high-pitched keening of injured Gentok. Smoke filled the room, and emergency alarms blared. Strong arms dragged her from the floor. Through blurry vision, she saw Major Clark's face, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. Ambassador, can you hear me? She tried to speak but coughed instead. Something warm and wet spread across her uniform. Looking down, she saw a jagged piece of metal embedded in her chest. Dark red bloomed around it. Medbay. Now. Clark was shouting into his communicator. Ambassador down. As they carried her from the ruined conference room, Catherine caught glimpses of the chaos. 2 Gentok lay motionless on the floor. Commander Pierce was helping an injured Dr. Winters, and Kral Voss, the Supreme Envoy, was being supported by his aides, green fluid leaking from a wound in his carapace. Their eyes met across the room. The Gentok made a gesture with his uninjured limb, the same one he had shown her earlier. Agreement between equals. In the medical bay, human doctors worked frantically to save her. Catherine could feel herself growing weaker. The pain was fading, replaced by cold numbness. "Tell Kral Voss," she whispered to Clark, who hadn't left her side. "Tell him. Finish what we started." "You'll tell him yourself," Clark insisted, but his eyes betrayed his fear. Catherine summoned her remaining strength. "Data stick. In my quarters. Hidden compartment. My jewelry box. Everything I suspected is there." The monitors above her bed began to sound urgent alarms. Medical staff pushed Major Clark aside as they fought to stabilize her. Catherine's last thought was of John. She hoped he would be proud of how close she had come to peace, and she hoped that someone would finish what she had started, not just peace between their species, but finding who had kept them at war for so long. The monitors flatlined, their steady tone marking the moment when humanity lost one of its greatest advocates for peace, and across the station, a shadowy figure sent a simple message. "Ambassador eliminated. Proceed to Phase 2. News of Ambassador Catherine Reeves' death spread quickly. On Earth, people gathered in streets and parks holding candles and pictures of Catherine. Many cried. Some called for war. In the White House Situation Room, President Samantha Powell listened as military leaders outlined attack plans. "The Gentok have shown their true intentions," said General Frank Miller, pointing at the star map. "We should strike their main colonies immediately." President Powell rubbed her tired eyes. "And if they didn't do this?" Ambassador Reeves's last away. Communications mentioned concerns about a third party. "With respect, Madam President, that's speculation. What we know is our ambassador is dead, killed by Gentok weapons." Admiral Gregory Bennett spoke up. "Not so fast, General. I knew Catherine well. She was careful and smart. If she suspected something, we should investigate before we rush to war." The President nodded. "We give the team on Harmony Point 72 hours to find proof. Prepare for war, but I won't give the order until I'm certain who our enemy really is." Back on Harmony Point, the explosion's aftermath had thrown both delegations into crisis. 3 Gentok officials had died along with Catherine. Several humans and Gentok were injured, including Supreme Envoy Kral Voss. Commander Alan Pierce sat in Catherine's quarters, now sealed as a crime scene. Station security had allowed him in to collect her personal items. He found the jewelry box Catherine had mentioned to Major Clark. Inside a false bottom lay a small data stick. Pierce plugged it into a secure tablet. Catherine's face appeared, recording made just hours before her death. "If you're seeing this, I'm likely dead," she said calmly. "The peace process is being sabotaged by an unknown group. They've manipulated both humans and Gentok for years, keeping us fighting when we should be talking. I believe they killed John and countless others. Don't let them win. Find them, expose them, and then finish the peace deal." Pierce wiped moisture from his eyes and copied the data to a secure drive. In the medical bay, Major Clark sat up despite the doctor's orders to rest. His head throbbed from the explosion, and bandages covered burns on his left arm. "You need to lie down," Dr. Baker insisted. "No time," Clark growled. "Ambassador Reeves is dead and someone's going to pay. I need to find who did this." The door slid open. A Gentok entered, smaller than most Clark had seen. Station security escorted him. "This is Officer Thelzar of Gentok Security," the human guard explained. "He's requested to speak with you privately." Clark nodded and the guards left them alone. The Gentok approached cautiously. "Major Clark, I worked with Supreme Envoy Kral Voss's security team," Thelzar said through his translator. "The envoy wants you to know he does not believe humans. Planted the bomb just as he hopes you do not believe Gentok did this. Then who did? Clark asked. I have been investigating unusual activities on the station. May I show you something? The Gentok held out a data device. Clark hesitated, then nodded. Thelzar displayed security footage from the station's maintenance tunnels. The timestamp showed it was from 2 hours before the explosion. A figure moved through the tunnels, face hidden by a hood. It wasn't human or Gentok, the body shape was wrong. Who is that? Clark asked. Unknown. But this being accessed systems near the conference room shortly before the attack. Clark stood carefully, ignoring the pain. We need to find them. My thoughts exactly, Thelzar replied. But we must be careful. I believe there are more of them on the station. In Dr. Winter's temporary lab, she worked frantically despite her injured arm. Commander Pierce had brought her Catherine's data stick, and she was analyzing it alongside station communications. This pattern is familiar, she muttered. I've seen it before. She pulled up historical records of first contact between humans and Gentok, particularly the messages that led to early conflicts. Then she compared them to recent station communications. There it is, she exclaimed. The same digital signature. Whoever manipulated our early translations is using the same techniques here. She sent an urgent message to Pierce, who was now acting as the human delegation leader. Minutes later, he arrived with 2 security officers. What did you find? He asked. Our mystery saboteurs have been around since first contact, Olivia explained. They've been altering communications between our species for decades. The attack wasn't random. It happened right when Catherine and Krelvos were closest to agreement. Pierce frowned. But who are they? And why keep us fighting? I think I know, Olivia said. Look at this. She showed Pierce a star chart of the disputed systems. These aren't just resource-rich. They're perfectly positioned for controlling trade routes between 3 different sectors of space. Whoever controls them has economic power over a huge region. And if humans and Gentok are too busy fighting each other, they don't notice someone else moving in, Olivia finished. I've detected encrypted transmissions from the station to coordinates in the disputed zone. Someone has bases there already. Pierce's communicator beeped urgently. It was Major Clark. Commander, I'm with a Gentok security officer. We've identified a potential suspect, non-human, non-Gentok. We're tracking them through Section C. B. Careful, Clark. We think there are more of them, and they've been playing a long game. Copy that, A loud crash interrupted him, followed by weapons fire. Under attack. Section C-12. Pierce ordered the security officers with him to respond, then turned to Olivia. Keep working. Find concrete proof of who's behind this. We have less than 70 hours before Earth launches attacks against the Gentok. In Section C-12, Clark and Thelzar had cornered their suspect, but 2 more figures had appeared and opened fire. Clark took cover behind a structural support beam as energy bolts sizzled past. We need them alive, he shouted to Thelzar, who was returning fire with a Gentok weapon. They seem to prefer otherwise, the Gentok officer replied. Clark risked a look around the beam. One of the attackers had moved to flank them. He fired his sidearm twice, hitting the figure in the leg. It fell with a strange hissing cry. The other attackers intensified their fire. Clark felt searing pain as a bolt grazed his shoulder. He stumbled and fell, his weapon sliding away. The nearest attacker moved in for the kill. Clark saw its face, clearly for the first time. Scaled, reptilian, with vertical pupils and yellow eyes. Not human. Not Gentok. Something else entirely. Thelzar fired repeatedly, driving the attacker back. Station security forces arrived, surrounding the area. The uninjured attacker triggered something on its wrist, and its body began to shimmer. Teleportation. Device! Thelzar shouted. Stop it! But it was too late. The figure vanished. The injured one tried to do the same, but Clark lunged forward despite his wound and grabbed its wrist device, crushing it. You're not going anywhere, he growled. You're going to tell us exactly who you are and why you killed our ambassador. Back in the medical bay, doctors treated Clark's new injury while security contained the captured alien. Thelzar stood, guard personally, The prisoner is from a species called the Voidborn, he told Clark. They control several systems beyond Gentok space. Never heard of them, Clark said as a doctor bandaged his shoulder. Few have. They prefer to work through others. Thelzar's mandibles clicked in what Clark now recognized as anger. We must make it talk. Commander Pierce arrived with Dr. Winters. We don't have to, he said. Dr. Winters found proof in Catherine's data. We know who they are and what they want. Now we just need to get this information to Earth before it's too late. The captured Voidborn glared at them from its cell, yellow, eyes filled with hate. Its plan had been years in the making, and now these primitive species had uncovered it. On his hospital bed, Clark looked at the alien with cold determination. For Catherine, he said quietly, and for everyone else you've killed to keep your secret. Time was running out. The team on Harmony Point had less than 24 hours before President Powell would order attacks against the Gentok. They needed to get their evidence to Earth and stop a war based on lies. Commander Pierce, Dr. Winters, and the injured Major Clark gathered in a secure room. On the screen, they could see the Voidborn prisoner in its cell. The alien had not spoken since its capture. We need to compile everything we have, Pierce said. The President needs absolute proof that the Gentok didn't kill Catherine. Dr. Winters nodded. I've analyzed all the data from Catherine's stick and the station records. The Voidborn have been manipulating our communications for decades. They altered translation systems to make each side sound more aggressive to the other. Major Clark, his arm in a sling and bandages on his shoulder, added, and they've been staging attacks. That's why the ship that killed Catherine's husband didn't match normal Gentok tactics. But why? Pierce asked. What do they gain from keeping us fighting? Control, said a voice from the doorway. Supreme Envoy Kralvos entered, moving slowly due to his injuries. His green carapace was cracked in places, and one of his limbs was bound against his body. Thelzar accompanied him. The disputed systems are not just resource-rich, Kralvos continued. They form a perfect trade corridor between three sectors of space. Whoever controls them has enormous economic power. Dr. Winters pulled up star charts on the main screen. And look at this. I found hidden bases in the disputed systems, not human, not Gentok. The Voidborn have already moved in while we've been busy fighting each other. They've played us against each other like pieces in a game, Pierce said. Grimly, Kralvos made a clicking sound that needed no translation. Anger. They killed your ambassador. They killed 3 of my advisors. They have killed thousands of both our peoples over the years. They must be stopped. Pierce stood straighter. Then let's stop them. Together. They worked through the night, compiling all their evidence into a single presentation. Dr. Winters handled the technical data. Major Clark provided security footage and the prisoner's information. Thelzar contributed Gentok military records showing inconsistencies in supposed human attacks, and Kralvos added his own statement, a formal declaration that his government did not order or approve any attack on the human delegation. As dawn approached on Harmony Point, they were ready. Pierce called Earth on the secure channel. President. Powell's face appeared on screen, lines of stress evident. Commander Pierce, your time is nearly up. Do you have evidence? We do, Madam President, more than evidence. We have the truth. For the next 30 minutes, they presented everything they had discovered. The Voidborn manipulation of communications, the fake attacks designed to look like human or Gentok aggression, the hidden bases in disputed territory, and finally, the captured Voidborn operative. When they finished, President Powell was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke to someone off-screen. Admiral Bennett, stand down attack preparations, I'm convinced. She turned back to Pierce. What do you recommend, Commander? Pierce glanced at Kralvos, who nodded. A joint operation, Madam President. Human and Gentok forces working together to root out the Voidborn presence in our space. And then? Powell asked. Peace talks. Real ones this time, without interference. Ambassador Reeves laid the groundwork. We should finish what she started. 2 hours later, alarms sounded throughout Harmony Point. Security teams rushed to the detention area. The void-born prisoner was dead in its cell, its body rapidly decomposing into an unidentifiable mass. Some kind of suicide implant, Dr. Baker said after a quick examination. Must have been triggered remotely. Major Clark slammed his good hand against the wall. They're covering their tracks. No matter, Kralvoss said. We have enough evidence without the prisoner, and we know where they are hiding. Pierce's communicator chimed. It was President Powell. Commander, I've spoken with the Gentok High Council. They've also been convinced by your evidence. We're authorizing a joint military operation against void-born positions in the disputed systems. And the peace talks? Pierce asked. We'll continue. I'm naming you acting ambassador until a permanent replacement for Catherine can be appointed. Pierce felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. I'll do my best to honor her memory, Madam President. Planning for the joint operation began immediately. Human and Gentok military officers who had once prepared to fight each other now worked side by side. Years of mistrust couldn't be erased in a day, but they shared a common enemy and a common grief. Major Clark, despite doctor's orders to rest, joined the tactical planning. The Voidborn will know we're coming, he warned. They've lost their advantage of secrecy, but they'll still be dangerous. Let them be dangerous, Thelzar replied. We will be more dangerous. 1 week after Catherine's death, the first joint human Gentok fleet launched from Harmony Point. 6 human warships and 4 Gentok battlecruisers, led by Admiral Bennett and Gentok Fleet Commander Hrakven, set course for the largest Voidborn base in the disputed systems. Before they departed, a small ceremony was held. Catherine's body, preserved for return to Earth, was brought to the launch bay. Honor guards from both species stood at attention as Commander Pierce spoke. Ambassador Reeves gave her life in pursuit of peace. She saw through the deception that kept our peoples divided, and in her final moments, she ensured the truth would be found. He placed his hand on the coffin. We now take the next step in her journey, not just returning her home, but continuing her work. Kralvoss stepped forward and placed a Gentok ceremonial emblem on the coffin. In our tradition, this marks one who spoke truth in the face of lies, one who sought connection rather than division. She will be remembered by both our peoples. As the joint fleet departed, Dr. Winters stood with Pierce in the observation dome, watching the ships until they disappeared into faster-than-light travel. What happens after? She asked quietly. After we deal with the Voidborn? Pierce looked at the stars. We build something new. Not just peace, but partnership. Catherine showed it was possible. It's up to us to make it last. On Earth, in Catherine's hometown, a simple ceremony was held. A tree was planted in her memory. President Powell spoke of duty and sacrifice. Old friends shared memories. And in a quiet moment, a small boy stepped forward to place flowers by the tree. That's for my Aunt Catherine, he said to the person next to him. Mom says she made friends with the aliens and stopped a war. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the peace talks, a memorial was unveiled on Harmony Point. A statue showing human and Gentok hands clasped in friendship. The plaque bore a simple inscription in both languages, peace purchased with courage, in memory of those who gave everything so different worlds could find common ground. Ambassador Catherine Reeves, Supreme Envoy Kralvoss, and all who work to build bridges rather than walls. Visitors to the memorial often noticed that both human and Gentok would pause there, sharing a moment of silent respect before continuing on their way. Together,